If just a little note about whether you got the email or not. If you didn't get didn't get the email invitation for this meeting, then please email me with your email address, because I don't know why that would happen, but if you email me again, then I'll add you to the list again. And a little plug in on the 19th, Saturday the 19th, I'm speaking in Hampstead. Got a meeting in Hampstead Saturday afternoon, a week on Saturday. It's on the website, timclissthis.com. But I'll send out an invitation to you again. If I know it's quite a long way for some of you to travel for an afternoon. But it is exciting because there's really no COVID restrictions in London anymore, not really. So give it a go. So this whole communication message, whatever you want to call talking about this, is that there is no self. But there is a problem with that, because it can sound like no self is a thing, like I am. So I'll know when I'm no self, or when there is no self, as opposed to how it seems at the moment, which is I know that I am myself. That's not what's being suggested. That's not what wants to be said. No self is not knowable. There's nothing to know. So really, no self is really pointing to not knowing, as opposed to self, which is the knowledge that I am, the knowing of my own being, the knowing of my existence, the knowing of my separateness, the knowing that I am inside. Now, in the absence of that conviction that I know who I am, there is nothing in its place. So there's no knowing of no self. None at all. So when you hear speakers, including me, say that this isn't what you expected, or this isn't what you wanted, that's really, when I say it, that's what I mean. That's what I'm pointing at, that this isn't some new knowledge, some new place, some new understanding. Simply no knowing. And to make it worse, as in to try and communicate it, knowing is exactly the same. It's kind of like knowing's exactly the same, but you no longer believe it. So in place of knowing I am real, I am inside, I am separate. There's this all-pervading emptiness. So the emptiness is not just what I used to call inside. It's everything. Empty inside, empty outside, no inside or outside. Simply not knowing any difference. And it's the not knowing any difference that is the end of separation. And yet even that's not true, because in that it's very obvious that there is no separation. And when there is no separation, there never was any separation, because there is only this. Was never was. So there's no seeing any other human beings as with a self or without a self. That's a great illusion as well. I think that's one of the real myths of non-duality. If you're a no self, then of course you recognize which human beings have a self and which ones don't. There is no self. There are no selves who have a self or don't have a self. There simply are no selves. And you could say that's the unconditional, that's the love. There's no human beings higher or lower than any others. There's still human beings you prefer to be with, and those you really wouldn't want to spend much time with. Preference is more pronounced, if anything, is more obvious. The thing that does change is that preference isn't judged like it was by me, especially for the human beings you prefer not to be with. You don't judge that as wrong. You don't judge them as wrong. Simply preference. Preferring Leicester cheese to cheddar cheese. Preferring one human being rather than another. There is great liberation in preferences being liberated from my judgments about them. And for others, just because they don't prefer the same things as me. I always judge them as wrong. Well, I really can't understand why she likes him. He's a complete asshole. You know, that kind of thing. So there's no liberation for me, but there's liberation for preferences and habits and feelings and opinions all of the things that I was very good at judging. Oh, and judgments. Because it's not that judgments don't happen. I mean, judgment is, this isn't about being non-judgmental. And it's not even about the absence of wanting what's happening to be different from what's happening. That's liberated too. Because of course, if you've been an avid non-duality follower, then you may think that of course, that would never happen. This has nothing to do with being a better person, a better human being. And that in itself, if you've ever spoken to people about what non-duality is, then that can be threatening and seem diabolical. Because self is essentially moral. And the self's ethics, my ethics, are really important to me. But when ethics and morals are just seen as, it's very obvious what they are, which what they are is one human being's idea of right and wrong. When, if that is obvious, then of course one human being's ideas of right and wrong are of no significance whatsoever. That doesn't mean to say you're against them. There's no need to challenge them. When all ideas of right and wrong, of good and evil, are seen for what they are, which is simply ideas, then even those ethics and morals that you would have been vehemently opposed to and would have fought to the death to try and fight against, doesn't mean you agree with them, but they're okay. How could it be otherwise? And there is great ease in no longer having to defend your standpoint on any belief or moral or ethic. Well, thank you for choosing Tim Cliss over Naho Awada. Oh shit, this is going on YouTube. Sorry, Naho. No offense. But if you'd like to ask a question or share anything, then feel free to just put up your hand or write in the chats.
Jonas has his hand up.
Jonas.
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't know that there's someone else tonight, so I came to you.
Good.
No, I really like your talks. And,
oh, thanks.
I have a question. On the weekend, I'm from Germany, and I was at Andreas's meeting. It was a kind of talker. And it was really lovely and beautiful, really wonderful. And Monday was a terrible day in many ways. Many things happened, including that I got the information that my father has cancer, and since then I've really went through all kind of emotions and so many things going on. And I seem to remember you talking about your father when he died, or kind of resonated in a way. But I also kind of feel when there's this anxiety and this feeling of losing for me, the most important person in my life, and don't want him to suffer and all these things, it seems like it's, what should I say, it's more sticky and terrible and kind of emotion than walking outside with the sun. And so how can something like that also be beautiful or free, or not say, but you know, this horrible terrifying kind of feelings. And what also is there, this feeling, even if I don't suffer, he will suffer, and I don't want him to suffer. And then there's this feeling, even if it should be seen for there is no me, well, so what? There's still someone who thinks he's suffering.
Well, we're not speaking about the end of suffering. I know there's quite a few speakers who do speak about that, and I would say that's like the golden carrots. That is the great. That's the great seller of a lot of spiritual paths, really. That the end of suffering, the end of emotional pain. Well, I'm really, when I'm speaking about pain being absolutely natural, especially emotional pain, physical pain and emotional pain. And without the illusion that it's my pain, in a way, I mean emotional pain, like the pain of grief and loss and compassion. Those feelings are more direct, felt more without me as a buffer, as a filter. It's not impossible that there could be distraction from emotional pain, which is what self usually does. You know, try and manage the pain, try and distract myself from it, try and deflect how it really feels. It's almost like the ability to do that is lost. And so I have this is not a prescription or a proposition that you won't feel fully what it is to be human, and especially to love. And all the feelings that you're describing, I mean, they're all expressions of love. I will say when feelings are all expressions of love, especially the ones that we fear most, which are sadness, sorrow, grief, loss. When it's very obvious that the reason I say the reason, that they are expressions of love, the most profound expressions of love and compassion, then there's no desire to rid myself of them, to distract myself from them, to say they're wrong in any way. That doesn't mean they're not painful. But if you think what most therapy is about, which is feeling more happiness and less sorrow, really, why would you want to feel less sorrow? Sorrow is, I know it's painful, but it's love.
I think what came to my mind this week, I'm a yoga teacher. I have a yoga school.
All right.
Ironically, it's going to stop fairly soon. I know I'm going to stop this job. There are going to be some changes for various reasons.
Right.
But very much this thing is, I can't show these feelings I have. I'm in front of people. I have to pretend.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not there.
No.
There's lots of these things, pretending or feeling I can't.
Yeah.
Just let the emotions be how they are.
Yeah.
I guess that's also part of it, right? In a
Yeah.
sense.
Oh no, that's a big part. Well, I would say that pretending, there is no self to die, but that ability to pretend, it can become increasingly difficult until it's seemingly impossible to pretend. I am is the pretense, is the mask, is the facade. I'll show the world what the world should see of me, you know, because there is a me that wants to be seen in the best light. And one of the things that's misheard about this message is that I often say it's not caring anymore. But it's not caring about my image. It's not caring about how I appear. It's not caring if I humiliate myself. Because one thing that self is terrified of is making a fool of myself, you know, humiliation. Humiliation is very powerful for the sense of being me. And there's no fear of that. Without the fear of that, there is liberation for those feelings that you feel I need to hide. And of course, it's one thing hiding them from, so if you're doing a job and you feel it's inappropriate to show those emotions, that's one thing, hiding from other human beings how you really feel. But the worst suffering for self is hiding those from yourself. It's this denial of the feelings to oneself, which self is often very effective at doing. Of course, feelings, it's like, I don't know, I haven't got an analogy. But you can't, every time you hide feelings, or suppress feelings or repress feelings, then they want to be felt. So I'm no physiological expert, but they're stored up somewhere and they come out inappropriately, or, you know, if they are controlled by self, this illusion that I can manage them and control them, then it's just storing up pain. And by obviously repressing them, by not feeling them, because what self says is, if I feel this fully, I'll completely break down. You know, it'll be too much. If I started crying, then I'd never stop. It's all a lie. Feelings are not dangerous, but to self says they are. To me, they feel dangerous. I make them wrong. These natural emotions that all human beings feel.
And that's one of the things this week. When my father talked to me on the phone, my mother, I was really cool holding it together. I didn't even notice it. I put down the phone and I started crying. I've never cried like that in my life. Seriously, it's amazing. My girlfriend was next to me and it was fine. I mean, I was so glad she just let me. Yeah. And when it was over, it was like a storm that passed, and then it was okay again. But the worst thing is after that, I didn't, but if there would have been this thing, oh, I can't do that. I'm such a poor person or whatever. If that doesn't come, it can just happen, you know. But, and that's something I've been feeling. Lots of these things I didn't have control because it's just so extremes now. But
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Jonas.
Thanks.
Vince has his hand up.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for putting this on today. I mean, I've been listening to sort of people like yourself. Well, I've been listening to sort of like non-duality like for a couple of years. It all sort of started off with like the Power of Now, and then I started listening, I probably shouldn't say their name, but I started listening to sort of teachers as opposed to speakers, because I didn't really know that there was anything different. And then I started listening to sort of like Jim Newman, and then basically like it just completely like ruined the non-duality teachers, because I sort of like went back and it just sort of seemed that they was giving like life advice really. Because I mean, not that I can fully, not that I fully sort of know, if you know what I mean, it makes more logical sense from what I can sort of understand from what's being said at the meetings by like non-duality teachers. So I've got a couple of questions. If there are like no other selves, no other me's in inverted commas, what happens in terms of interacting with like other people? I mean, because to me, like I'm sort of the right. Well, I know there's apparently no me, but like there's very sort of thinking in like black and white, and just thinking, well, if there's no other me's, like, then what's the point of interacting with like other people anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Well, the beauty, Vince, is there's no point at all, no. But then there can be any point. You know, when there is no... the illusion that when it can sound like if I lost myself, then, and it's really obvious that there aren't any selves, then I wouldn't know how to interact, or there'd be no motivation to interact.
Yeah, that's much more along the lines of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Vince, it's not you interacting now. It's naturally the human being called Vince would naturally just be how Vince is. And so if you like interacting, you will, I would say what there's likely to be is more interacting with people you like interacting with and less with the ones you don't, just because you thought you should do.
Okay.
But interacting without me, like everything me says, without me, I wouldn't be able to do anything. You know, it's me that's doing it, or there'll be no point, and there's no, there will be no motivation to do it because I'm the motivation. Well, interacting as a human being is completely natural.
Yeah.
You've just claimed it as yours.
Okay.
It's not, and it would be. I would say interacting is much easier. It's much easier without me, because most interactions that I had as me, I'm more thinking about myself than the interaction or the other human being, because I'm very self-conscious. And really what we're speaking of is the end of self-consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking blessing, Vince.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you say as well, like, I mean, I don't know, it's, I mean, I think about like this stuff like a lot, like pretty much all day long. Like I work on my own, and I don't know, it's just like I can't really imagine. I don't know. I mean, there's been experiences I've had where it felt like there was no self, but at the same time, could I really know that anyway? Is that just me realizing that I've got no self, as opposed to like there being no self as well? Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, there's no noticing no self, Vince. So there is no experience of no self.
Yeah. Okay.
There isn't, or because there's nothing to experience. There's nothing, no self is not an experience.
Okay.
It's not.
I mean, that I hear that a lot about, like, because I've heard like non-duality teachers going, well, in your experience, blah blah blah, and like they sort of sometimes do allude to, like, there's one thing I heard like a teacher say where they go, on whose half are like you offended, and like that is, but that's an experience of looking for someone who's there, but at the same time it's so sorry. The point I was sort of getting to. So when like non-duality speakers say, "Oh, there's no experiencing," does a term experiencing mean like something happened yesterday and that's like affecting me today, or something's going to happen tomorrow? I don't really understand because I sort of think, well, eating a sandwich would be an experience.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But I know that could be just eating, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that can be misleading. Yeah, I agree with you, Vince. So to say there's no experiencer, but there is, you could say there's only experiencing.
Okay.
Like experiencing eating a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, okay.
But remember, when we're talking about experience, it's always a past, isn't it?
Yeah.
What I mean is what we're speaking of is it's really the end of breaking down this wholeness into segments, which we call separate experiences.
Okay.
So eating there is the happening, the experiencing of eating a cheese sandwich, but as an experience, it's in the past, isn't it? An experience.
Okay. Yeah.
This isn't an experience.
So basically,
we can't. So you've heard other speakers talk about this as mystery. Well, that's the mystery is you can't locate where one experience begins and the next one. So an experience begins and ends. So it lasts. An experience is always for a time period, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
And there is none.
Okay. Okay.
Only in the storytelling afterwards. So, and that would be the experiencing of telling the story of an experience happening. That's all we've got. Now, I'm not saying that would stop, but that's all we've got really in communicating with each other. We're just telling each other stories which we're making up from memory about experiences.
Okay.
No, there isn't anything else. The rest is completely unknowable.
Yeah.
You're not going to know what's happening, and that's all that's happening.
Yeah, that's a very hard, very difficult thing to get my head around as well.
Well, I've got good news for you, Vince. You won't get your head around it. You can't. No fucker has. Anyone who's teaching and said they have, you can just go, all right, yeah, and just dismiss them and listen to some idiots who say that it's not possible. At least you got a chance of some kind of freedom in that. Whereas there is no freedom in that it's possible, Vince. That will just keep you seeking for the rest of your life, whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it with other things, not just spirituality. It's like been a constant like thing of seeking through buying something or getting something.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, and it's always been so incredibly unsatisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if it was true what they said that you could get it, well, if you did get it, you wouldn't be satisfied with it. That's the whole message, that all gains, anything that's gained, whether it's material or spiritual or intellectual, you know, knowledge is what self loves it, you know, I've got, or understanding, all of that is, it's all empty. That's the freedom, that it's all worthless. That's the freedom. It just doesn't have, you know, you're giving it all the worth that it has, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's to do with me being right and somebody else being wrong is like the main thing that's been going on for a long time. Yeah.
And one of the great freedoms is knowing that you can't be right. So what self wants is freedom from being wrong. That's self longs for that, you know, freedom from getting it wrong. I mean, never realizing at all that the only freedom would be freedom from the possibility of getting it right.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's what?
It's exhausting.
Oh, of course it is. It's and for most selves, their only hope is exhaustion.
One other quick thing. That's another quick question, if it's all right.
Yeah.
What about I've never asked anyone this, but what about in terms of like romantic love, like with like a partner? Or is that just a story?
Well, the romance is a story, but the in love, I mean, it's all stories as soon as we tell it. But of course, yeah, I mean, self or no self, that could be falling in love.
Oh, okay. Just out of interest, really, that was all.
Yeah, because you don't want to give that up.
Oh.
Don't give up the opportunity of falling in love.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much, Tim.
Oh, thanks, Vince. So there's nothing more paradoxical, because I really want to say and emphasize that this is the end of all possibilities. Because possibility is always in the future, and there is no future. And yet the end of possibilities is absolutely open. So impossibility is, again, is totally is horrific to self. I live in hope, in dreams, in fantasies of the future, in possibility. Without possibility, I will feel hopeless. Now, and to self, the end of hope is one of the most dreadful things. It's probably the number one thing that I get people saying, well, it's just nihilistic what you're saying. It's just awful. The end of hope. The end of hope is the freedom. And unbelievably, the end of hope is the end of hopelessness. Without hope, hopeless is impossible. Hopeless only exists as an opposite of hope. And without hope, there is no hopeless. It's probably the most wonderful I mean, it's a simple wonder, but it is a lot of the wonder and you've heard of awe and wonder and peace and beauty is in the death of hope and hopeless.
Marissa has a hand up.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Tim. Good to
Hi.
see you.
And you.
Yeah, I was just thinking about some of the things you said today and also something in another meeting that I saw on YouTube, just like kind of for one, like the death of blame, the death of right and wrong. And also like I think you said in a meeting recently, you said something about like oh, you said, isn't it sad that there's this view sometimes that like a relationship that doesn't last for eternity is now a failed relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that. I just think that's so profound, you know.
Oh yeah, thanks. It is, yeah, it's lovely. I mean, what self denies is the most obvious fact that all relationships are temporary.
Mm.
Well, they're all gonna end, aren't they?
Absolutely.
For sure. There's nothing more sure.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because one thing that happened relatively recently is, I went through a breakup and it was pretty devastating because there's so many things about this person that I still like. I absolutely treasure, and there's other parts of the relationship that it just felt like I like what you said. It wasn't really right or wrong. It was just like a sense of it feeling like not so healthy or like not feeling a preference for kind of the level of stress. Honestly, I was feeling. I think we were both feeling, and it's funny because looking like it's funny to feel like, wow, like I can have moved on from a relationship, and of course on a level that's storytelling, but like you said, that's all we have, but
No, it's fine to tell stories.
right, and it's like, I've moved on from this relationship, but it's so funny because at this point, kind of in the whole death of really feeling like there's any ownership of anything, like there's not a him inside that body, there's not a me inside this body, it's like it's just it's just life happening as that, so I don't have to, there's no feeling anymore of feeling like this person now has to be on like a blacklist, like now he's a bad guy. Like I think in the past
Yeah.
it felt like that, like to make sense of a breakup, oh, you have to be on the bad list.
Absolutely.
Like, but it's like I still love him so much.
Well,
That's still there,
Well, if you've loved someone, you may fall out of love, but that doesn't diminish the love at all. I would say, I mean, if you've ever loved someone, that's not moving. That doesn't go anywhere. And one of the things that the game that self plays, seemingly to make it feel better, is to pretend I hate that guy, I hate that girl. She's a dreadful human being. Because it's her fault it failed. It's his fault it failed. Well, there is no failure or success. Isn't that wonderful? There are no successful relationships. Don't get me wrong, there's happy and miserable ones. There's what seemingly functional and, very pleasant relationships. And then there's toxic and harmful and dreadful ones. But that's not success or failure. And that's a lot different. But this myth of love, that it can just be obvious that anyone you've loved, any human being that you've loved, the love remains when they've gone. It just doesn't go anywhere. And I mean, that can be the end of a relationship or in death, in physical death. And in that sense, all you ever had of that human being, what you called the relationship, was the love. And that doesn't move. It doesn't fade.
Beautiful. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Marissa.
Oh, Gemma left a message in chat. Gemma, you can just open your mic. That's fine. Go ahead.
Where's Gemma?
Where is she? Let's see.
Where's Gemma? I can unmute you, Gemma.
I can't see her either.
I've got.
Got it. Ah, there she is. Yeah, you could be able to talk now, Gemma, I think.
Hi, Gemma. Oh, you don't want to speak.
That's okay.
I do.
Oh, you do. Sorry. Bloody hell, it made me jump.
Oh, it's Lynette.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, I see. You've got Gemma on your name.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
odd.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So going back to relationships, if they never end, I mean, they never were, so they never end. But I'm confused about.
Yeah, I'll say.
My husband's in the background. Ignore him. So.
Well, careful what you say about relationships when your husband's around.
Well, exactly. I mean, very threatening, very threatening. But the point is, really, I mean, how do we know? I mean, you said it pretty categorically. They never were, they never end, therefore, because they never were, maybe. But just say a little more. And I'm sorry I jumped in. Maybe it was in your introduction today. I don't know. But I'm
No,
bragging.
that's fine. What do you want me to say a little more about?
I don't know. I mean, it's just like, how do we, okay, Tim, how do we know that
We don't.
that they never end? Who the fuck says that? I mean, how can we say that?
Well, if they begin,
Yeah.
if there are no relationships, then of course they don't begin and they don't end and they don't continue. So the idea of never ending, that when normally how human beings speak to each other about a relationship doesn't end, it's an eternal relationship. You know, we'll be together for all eternity. Well, there's the ultimate romantic fantasy right there. So I'm not speaking about that not ending. I'm just saying there are no relationships. There aren't two selves in relationship. That doesn't mean two human beings aren't in relationship.
Yeah.
But this notion of, eternal love, there is no eternal. I mean, I never say the word eternal or infinite, because eternal and infinite are both fantasies that human beings have made up. There's no knowing of infinite or eternal. I mean, eternal is dead as a dodo without, if there's no past or future, well, there can't be eternal, can there? Time never ending.
It's such a mind fuck, really. The whole thing. It's just impossible.
Yeah, that's. Oh, you could say there isn't a point, but you could say the mind fuck is the point.
Yeah.
Stop, stop the mind trying to work it out, because all I'm ever speaking about is the impossibility of working it out.
Well, exactly. And I should have gotten it by now. I mean, and I'm mad at myself, that the
No, well, there's nothing to be mad about, because if there's a desire to get it, that's you're stuck with that.
Stuck.
You're stuck with that, and that is stuck, because that is the terrible dilemma for me, is I can't help but want to work this fucking mystery out. I mean, the only reason it's a mystery, I mean, it's the most ordinary mystery. Life isn't mysterious. I don't use the word mystery much because it sounds mysterious. And of course, we're speaking of the most ordinary, obvious mystery. But it's mystery in that you won't find an answer. The difference between this communication, this message, and what typically called teachings is teachings suggest you can work it out.
Yeah.
And understand.
It just feels like time is running out, you know, when you hit certain point and you've been seeking for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like, oh my God, if it's never going to happen, and that can be both a gift, you know, it can be like relaxing. Sometimes I find that relaxing. It's like, I give up. But then always the little impulse comes back to you know, get it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I never suggest giving up, you know, because it could be, and there's a lot of surrender, you know, there's a lot of paths of surrender and giving up, aren't there? But of course, that's just more fuel for me. You know, I can give up. I'm doing the giving up. I'm now surrendered. I'm accepting all of those ideas. You know, that can be. Don't get me wrong. They can be helpful for the sense of self to feel a little less uptight.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
driven.
it happens.
And it can be it can make life easier.
Yeah, but it's just not the quintessential.
Well, no, because there is nothing to give up anyway. You know, there is nothing to give up.
No. And it's just so fascinating how it goes in waves. I mean, how it.
Yeah.
There is, in my life, there has been that movement. It's like, it's okay now. Oh, it's no longer okay. It's okay.
By the way, I'm not talking about the end of that. It is Gemma, is it? No, it's not Gemma.
No.
Why?
Lynette.
Yeah.
Of course it's Lynette.
Yeah.
Why don't I? Of course it's Lynette. I've met you loads of times. Why are you calling yourself Gemma today, Lynette?
I have no idea. It's no idea. Unless there was a Gemma using my computer actually in my house. So probably she switched my Zoom meetings.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it makes sense now.
All right. Well, you can either one. It's all right.
Thanks, Lynette.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. I'm not suggesting there won't be waves, you know. Lynette says, you know, it just comes in waves. There's waves, you know. Well, yeah, of course there's waves. There's waves on the ocean when it's fucking windy, and when it's dead calm, it's like a mill pond. That's how it is. I'm not talking about stopping the wind blowing.
Did you still want to ask your question, Jocelyn? I saw you put your hand up and then down.
Is that Joyce?
No, well, Joyce has got a hand up, but Jocelyn put a hand up first. But
okay, Jocelyn, yeah.
It's okay, because I was just going to ask Tim about the waves, but he said it anyway.
Oh, and
I heard he was about to say it, and then he didn't continue.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's the most common metaphor you hear, isn't it? In not just in non-duality, but a lot of other spirituality, you know. But of course, they go, well, you know, you're a wave on the ocean, and the wave and the ocean are not two. I mean, it's a little romantic for my taste, but but what I could say about it is about the waves of, you know, life being seemingly not okay. Certainly what self would say, oh, life's not okay at the moment. It was okay. I can't wait for it to be okay again, because this isn't okay. For whatever reason, self is saying that. Without me making those judgments, not okay is okay. I'm not saying it will be okay all the time. I'm saying it's okay even when it's not okay. And that is hard to convey, but but there's such an immense relief in not judging. You know, when life's shit, so you break up from your beloved, or your beloved dies, your beloved dog, your beloved mother. It's not okay, but that's perfectly okay.
But there's kind of layers of it, aren't there? Like, because it's kind of like, it's okay that it's not okay that it's not okay. Do you know? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's almost like sort of skimming off the layers till you finally get to it's okay that it's not okay. But in the meantime, it's not okay that it's not okay. And that seems really valid.
I know. It's not invalidating. This doesn't invalidate anything.
Yeah. I wasn't saying that you were invalidating it.
No, what I mean is what because what self does with it's not okay is it's an imperative to put it right, to make it okay.
Hmm.
Joyce, you've had your hand up for a long time. Thanks, Jocelyn. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry. Joyce, would you like to ask your question? Or
yes, I mean, you've been answering my questions all along. Thank you so much. Yes, you said something about, or maybe I heard it this way, that there's a point where you can't not feel what's going on. You can't hide from it anymore. And I'm still trying to do that because that's been my pattern. So I can't, sorry, I can't hide from it anymore. And there's still a tendency to want to do that. And a lot of anxiety is coming up.
Yeah.
And fear. And I know the only way through is to feel. It's affecting me physically, my breath, and there's a lot of anxiety. And I know on some level it's all okay. It's not real. It's a story, but it's certainly scary. And it's like I'm straddling the two worlds, you know, the one that is avoiding and the one that was to feel.
Yeah, it's okay, Joyce.
So I don't know what you can say about that, but it's hard.
There's nothing to say about it. It's fine. But of course there'll be a lot of fear when, you know, I mean, it's only in the story, but in the story, Joyce has been hiding from those feelings, or, you know, pushing them down, pushing them away for a long time. So all I can say is they won't hurt. You know, they're not harmful. The fear of feelings is misguided. There is nothing to fear.
Yeah, it feels like a total loss of control, and even death, and even not being able to breathe deeply. And
well, that is the whole illusion of me, is that I've been in control all this time, and I'm not ready to relinquish it now, and so I create a lot of I've fucking got this far. I'm not going to give it up now.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know.
So, yeah.
Oh, thanks, Joyce.
Just what's happening. Thank you.
But yeah, the feelings are okay.
So it's almost like the feelings won't kill me, but trying to avoid the feelings might. I mean, not really, but it's actually the easier choice.
Yeah, either are perfectly okay. I know I don't mean they feel like that necessarily.
Yeah, I understand. You're right.
There's no threat. And self creates the threat, you know, in order to maintain the illusion of control.
Yeah, trying to hold on to the self, right?
Yeah. And remember, it's self trying to hold on to the illusion of self. It feels like you'd fall to your death, and there's nowhere to fall and no one to fall.
Go ahead, David.
David.
Hi, Tim.
I have to say before you start, I've missed you.
Oh, yeah, I've been lying low.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just great to see you.
Been draining my carburetor. I wasn't actually going to say anything, but just the previous speaker prompted this out. Maybe not a lot, but I was reminded of the very moving scene in the book about Eugene's final days by this Lewis Brawley character who we've talked about before, actually, I think.
Yeah.
And he basically looks after him for the last few years of his life. And it's very, very moving. And towards the end, he's so unwell and he's skeletal, actually. And he's in a lot of pain. And Brawley goes to pick him up off the sofa, this skeleton of a man. And there's something on his leg, it's some kind of growth or boil or something. And he lets out this scream. And Lewis Brawley says, "Does it hurt?" He said, "Don't say that. There is pain." And I thought that was just fabulous. I mean, I think it relates to what's been said as well.
Right.
And that's in the thick of it. He's absolutely in the thick of it. You know, don't say that. There is pain.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, that's about it. Really, nothing more to say.
No.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Of course, what self says is pain will kill me. Yeah. I can't stand pain. You know, great fear of pain. I'm not suggesting go out and seek it, by the way, you know. No. But
I suppose
that's slightly different because it's physical pain. But what self says about emotions, I mean, is really bullshit. Yeah, that emotions will kill me. That's what self says. They have
words tend to sound a bit trite, and it's easier said than done. But Buddha apparently said there is suffering but no sufferer, which is an insult to something or other. But it seems to ring true in this context somewhere. I mean, maybe one day we'll discover that.
No, it does. Yeah. Yeah. I'd probably say the same. I'm not making myself Buddha, by the way.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Tim. Thanks again.
No, lovely to see you, David.
And you. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Well, lovely to see all of you. Thanks for coming. If you would like to be, if you didn't get an invitation for today, and you would like an invitation, please email me with your email address saying that you'd like to be on the mailing list for invitation to meetings. You just go to Tim Cliss this and message me there. Also, if you can get a flight to London a week on Saturday, it'd be great to meet some of you. If you can get a train, even better, or if you can get a bus. But I'll have a normal meeting next Thursday. Anything I've missed, Darren?
No, Naomi in chat said, sometimes I think this can't be any more beautiful, and then it is. Thanks, Tim, and all.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks everybody who contributed today, because it is it's lovely when people feel open enough and free enough to share how it is. And that's all we're speaking about. Nothing spectacular, just how it is. And there isn't a right and wrong way about how it is. It simply is just as it is. That's it. Nothing more.
Thanks, Tim.